Hello, mathematicians. So yesterday we took values that were given to us in a table and we plotted them on a coordinate plane. Today we are going to fill in those tables. So we're going to get a partially filled in table and we are going to fill in the rest. And we're not going to graph them, we're just going to fill them in. Right, so see here, I already have them all formatted for you, so all you have to do is click on the text box and type in the value. I'm going to go over a few of these examples with you, and then the rest will be your assignment. So let's look at the directions. The directions are to complete the function table, and we're going to do that by substituting the x value into the equation, simplifying for the y value, and then typing that y value into the box. Now, you have been substituting values in and simplifying in this class. We did this first semester, and this is one of the reasons why we practice that, so when we get to equations, we already have the background skills and knowledge to complete this task. So if you look in the left-hand column, so the left-hand column, we have x values. And then in the right-hand column, there is a y, and then we have blank text box. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute those x values into the equation that they give us, and then we're going to type in the value in the green boxes. So our first equation here, let me make my pen a little bit thicker. Right, so we have the equation y equals x plus 4. And our first x value that we're going to use is -9. Again, I'm not making this up. We're using the numbers that have been given to us. So if x equals -9, what does y equal? Okay, so notice that nothing changed. The only thing that's different is now we have a number in for x instead of the letter. So we can simply simplify this, and -9 plus 4 would be -5. So our y value would be -5. So you're going to go to your PowerPoint, you're going to type -5 in. Notice it's already formatted for you. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to click on the box and type. All right, our second value that we're going to be looking at is -6. So when x equals -6, what does y equal? Well, let's find out. Again, I'm using this same equation and nothing changes except for I'm replacing the x value with a number. All right, so when I simplify this, -6 plus 4 would be -2. So when x equals -6, my y value is going to equal -2. And again, you're just clicking on the box and typing in that value. Our third value that we are going to focus on is an x value of -2. So let's find out what y will equal when x equals -2. So again, the equation does not change. We are just simply replacing the x with a -2. Well, -2 plus 4 would be a +2. All right, and our last one for this first problem. What does y equal when x equals 7? So y equals 7 plus 4. And what is 7 plus 4? 11. So we're going to come to our table, select the box, and type in 11. All right. There There's probably a better way to do this. All right, so now we're going to move on to number 2, and our equation on number 2 is y equals negative x minus 3. So when there's a negative x value, this is where people start to try to get rid of negative signs because they feel like it. I don't know why they do it. But we can't get rid of that negative sign because it is part of the equation. So if we're substituting a negative value in, now we have 2 negatives. So I'll show you what that means. In our first number that we are going to try, we want to know what the y value is when x equals negative 10. So one strategy that you could use to help alleviate the problem of leaving out negative signs is just putting a parentheses where the variable is that you are replacing. So notice there's a negative sign outside of that because it's in the equation. So if we're substituting a negative 10, we have to make sure to substitute a negative 10. That negative in the original equation does not replace the negative on 10. Okay, does that make sense? There's a negative in the equation, we're substituting a negative in. So now we have 2 negatives. And when you take a negative times a negative, you get positive. So it's 10 minus 3, and so our y value would be 7. So select the box, type it in, and now we're going to test our next value. So what is the y value when x equals negative 6? So again, we have to make sure that we are not dropping any negative signs. We have to keep every single negative sign that we have in the original equation and whatever we are substituting in. So negative times negative would make that a positive 6. And 6 minus 3 would be 3. So when x equals negative 6, our y value equals a positive 3. So you come over to PowerPoint and you type in that number. All right, well, what does our y value equal when x equals 3? So again, that negative sign is a part of the problem, but we're substituting in a positive 3. Okay, but we still have that negative on there. So this is really negative 3 minus 3, or negative 3 plus a negative 3, which would be negative 6. So when our x value is positive 3, our y value is negative 6. And last, what is our y value when x equals 10? Again, we don't want to forget about that negative sign that's in the original equation. Negative 10 minus 3 would be a negative 13. So when our x value equals when our x value equals 10, our y value equals negative 13. Oh, sweet. All right. Now we're done with that one. Now let's move on to number 3. Our equation is y equals negative 4x. So we want to find out what our y value is when x equals negative 4. Right, so if x equals negative 4, we have to make sure to substitute a negative 4 in. We multiply negative 4 times negative 4 would be positive 16. So when we have an x value of negative 4, we have a y value of positive 16. Well, what about when x equals negative 2? Well, what about it? Let's see. we have -4 times -2, which would be +8. So when x equals -2, our y value is +8. Next, what is our y value when x equals -1? We're going to take -4 times -1, and we get a +4. So when our x value is -1, our y value is +4. And last, what is our y value when x equals 0? Well, -4 times 0 would be 0. So when our x value is 0, our y value is also 0. All right, I'm going to do a few more problems with you from one of the equations just so you can see it. Number 6. All right, so we want to find out what y equals when x equals -9. So we have y equals -1/3 times -9 plus 5. All right, well, multiplying by a 1/3 is the same as dividing by 3. So what's 9 divided by 3? 3. And it's a positive times a positive. So it would be, or a negative times a negative, which equals a positive, sorry. So that'd be a +3 plus 5, and y would equal 8. All right, so the rest of them are up to you. So it is your assignment. Again, it's just simplifying, so when you substitute the value in, it's PEMDAS, so make sure you take care of any parentheses, multiplication, division before you take care of the addition or subtraction. And if you got to this point in the video, please drop a smiley face in the chat and you might get some extra credit. Happy mathing!